you could get the money, you could get the power. Keep your eyes on the final hour. I said you could get the money, you could get the power. Keep your eyes on. I said you could get the money, you could get the power. Keep your eyes on. I said you could get the money, you could get the power. Keep your eyes on the power.
2, 3.
So when I first started traveling a lot for shows, I used to worry a lot about my gear. I remember handing my Arturia Matrix Brute and my Sequential Prophet off after the last rehearsal for my first Vegas show, and just seeing the box truck pull away that was going to get it to the show on time, and just thinking to myself, oh my god, I hope that my babies make it there okay. After a while, I stopped bringing around the 2 big analog synths because it was just way too much of a hassle, but I was not yet ready to put everything in the hands of backline companies and techs, so I would still carry the Yamaha Modi X on my back through airports and all around. Even that, though, honestly was a huge fucking hassle, and I had to stand up to a few flight attendants and TSA security people to assert my right to have that on the plane as carry-on. A lot of time has passed since then, and today marks the start of a new era, because I am making my way to the State Farm Arena in Atlanta, Georgia with my whole rig just on this. Here's how I'm doing that.
It's one-sided. What about you, Marlos? Marlos does not have it at all.
So, quick disclaimer. There's a bunch of things about the circumstances of these kinds of gigs that I very much know are not usual circumstances. The first is the presence of production managers and techs that deal with renting and dealing with the logistics of backline equipment for the whole band. Obviously every band doesn't just have that, and even when you do, you can't just get any piece of gear anywhere. I remember, I forget where we were, but I put the Arturia Matrix Brute on my tech rider, and they got back to me saying that the closest they could get was a Micro Korg, which is not very close, if you know about keyboards. But even when you think that you are getting something, sometimes there can be surprises. Like, I remember we were in Brazil and I was supposed to be able to have a Sequential Prophet as part of my rig. I was counting on it, and I get there and there was a Prophet, but it was basically just totally broken. Like, the outputs just output static. Luckily we're in a major music market, Atlanta, Georgia, so I was able to count on basically getting whatever I needed. Aside from those kinds of factors, which I know are not present in most gigging situations, I still think that this will be useful information for people. Anybody can still rent gear. You might even find it more worth it to rent gear than to risk potentially damaging or losing your own gear, which is probably more expensive than the rental. But even if you can't do that, you can still buy things from Guitar Center and return them.
Sam Mod X7, Sam's Mod X7.
In order to pull all this off, I need to treat the analog boards as auxiliary and the Yamaha as main, and have different strategies for each. My strategy for the analog boards is to limit my sounds to whatever I can recreate from scratch when I get to the venue. If this seems like a compromise, the reality is the more I know about the board, my patches, and synthesis, the less limited I am.
Alright, we good. Moving on to the Prophet 6.
My strategy for the Yamaha Modi X is different. So, back in Jersey, I put this thumb drive in the Yamaha and saved a user file, a duplicate of all my settings and patches. Here in Atlanta, I put the thumb drive in this backlined Yamaha and load up that user file, and this keyboard basically becomes my keyboard back home. Now, this isn't necessarily new, but it's the first time I've been comfortable enough to rely on this and not even bring my board. And that feels like a big deal to me.
It's funny how money change the situation. Miscommunication lead to complications. My emancipation of a cherry equation. I was on a humble you on every station.
Now, I don't mean to imply that a workstation like the Modi X can do what a Prophet or a Matrix Brute can do. It can do it passably enough for a show, but we all know that analog is analog and digital is digital.
Tell me who I have to be to get some reciprocity.
But what we trade in analog power and depth we more than make up for with nearly limitless capacity to layer, split, and organize our patches exactly how we need, the ability to send program change messages to the rest of the rig, and the ability to do things like what I just did. And that's why for this gig, even though I'm very much an analog guy, a workstation kind of has to be the centerpiece of my rig.
So on behalf of touring musicians everywhere, thank you Yamaha for saving my gear from the wear and tear of the road and the roulette wheel of airport travel.